Hey everyone, Thyworm here with 3 different ways to craft yourself a +1 minion starter wand in SSF, aimed primarily at those not so great at crafting, like myself. These are not the only methods or the best methods, but I think are understandable methods and methods that I personally use to craft my own starting wand for the SRS Guardian, for example. Let's dive in. Let's first quickly explain why you would want a +1 minion wand to begin with. It is typically for 2 reasons. First, just like with most spell gems, minion gems scale very well with levels. They typically get more life, do more damage, sometimes they get more resistances or even other effects. Having additional levels on your minion skill gems is usually a big DPS increase and a big improvement for a minion build. Next to that, most minion builds run specters, and once the specter skill gem reaches level 25, it hits a breakpoint. From level 25 onwards, the gem allows you to raise 3 specters instead of the usual 2 specters which you would have at, for example, raise specter level 20. Getting the specter skill gem to level 25 can be challenging, but +1 minion wands help with that. Now that we have that out of the way, let's talk about the first method. We're starting with a simple yet effective method, and that is alteration spamming. Let's first talk about some prerequisites or requirements you need before you can start. First, make sure you have the trigger craft, the bench craft, which you can find in Act 9 Refinery, hidden in the zone under a grate. You can tell by a green glow coming from the grate. Second, make sure you have around 500 or so alteration orbs just to be safe, and around half that much augmentation orbs. You will also require Regal and Exalted orbs, but fortunately these are very easy to get this league. Check the item level of the minion wand that you're using to make sure it is at least item level 60 or the modifier +1 to all minion skills simply cannot be crafted. And while you're at it, make sure you're using a minion wand. You can tell by the implicit that gives increased minion damage. Any minion wand is fine really for starters. An additional note on the item level of the wand: the higher item level the item is, the more modifiers can roll on it, and thus as the number of possible modifiers is larger, it is harder to hit a specific modifier you're looking for. Or in other words, it is a little easier to hit a +1 minion prefix on a minion wand that has item level 60 compared to a wand of item level 85. In the first scenario, it would take you an average of 221 tries using alteration and augmentation orbs. In the second scenario, it's 248 tries on average. That isn't much of a difference, around 10% in this case, but it is good to be aware of this. Now that you have everything you need, you can just start by using alteration orbs, and all you're hoping to hit is +1 to level of all minion skills. There are 2 options you can hit. Either you hit the roll directly, leaving you with a magic wand with +1 to minions, which is great, or you may hit 2 decent other modifiers on the wand, but not +1 to minion, and then you can use a Regal orb to see if you get lucky. This is a long shot, I'm aware, but as Regal orbs are so plentiful, I think it is worth it if you're already rolling 2 initial good affixes on the magic wand. Plus, you may just craft yourself an upgrade, even if you don't hit the +1 to all minion skills. That is always something to consider. This is why every now and then I hit the wand with a Regal orb. In this case, for example, I hit a tier 1 minion damage roll, decide to use a Regal orb to see what I can get, and I get minion attack and cast speed, which is great. I slam it with an Exalt, hit another minion attack damage mod. Now my wand all of a sudden has 170% increased minion damage and attack and cast speed. And there is room for the trigger too. It's not +1, but these outcomes you should consider as well. This is likely better than your average +1 minion wand. We are here for a +1 minion wand though, let's just pretend that didn't happen. I take another wand, keep spamming alteration orbs, and hit the +1 level to all minion skills using an augmentation orb. Now I have a magic wand with +1, which is great, and increased fire damage, which is bad. Because this is the most basic method, I'm just going to apply a Regal orb hoping to get lucky, which I don't. Now is the time to craft your trigger, which is a suffix. You don't want to use another Exalted orb filling up these suffixes potentially. You need to craft the trigger now while you still have an open suffix on the item. And after that is done, you say a little prayer, close your eyes and use exalted orbs until you fill the affixes. I roll another minion damage mod, tier 6, giving me a pretty decent +1 minion starter wand with a total of 65% minion damage. It is not great, it is not bad, it is just a decent item to get you started, and it is likely much better than you would have while being in early maps. It is also reasonable to say that by using this method you shouldn't expect outcomes much better than this, but this is just the starting point. It's time for the second method. Method 2, alteration spamming and multimodding, requires a bit more work up front. The main thing is you need to find the benchcraft that says item can have up to 3 crafted modifiers, also commonly known as multimodding, as you can apply multiple modifiers. This craft drops from a unique map, the Putrid Cloister, meaning you may not have this unlocked yet. There's currently no great way to farm unique maps now that we no longer have Kireg missions. I had decent results with just running strongboxes, which occasionally also spawn unique map cartography strongboxes. You can also run Betrayal, and there is a Wish and Mirage, and I think you can reroll the Kireg inventory with gold. He may sell you this map, but you will have to get a little lucky, unfortunately, to drop this thing. Something else you need is 2 divines, because that is how much this craft costs. Assuming you have all of this, you do the same thing as with method 1, meaning simply alteration spamming. I'm using a different wand, but it's the same idea. I hit the +1 minion affix and the augment hits another nice mod, minion crit multiplier. I'm happy with any minion modifier basically. We must use a regal orb to make the item rare so you can do further crafting, and you're hoping that this hits a prefix and not a suffix. Unfortunately for me, 38 intelligence is a suffix, which isn't good. The reason why you need this to be a prefix is that the multimod craft, or the this item can have up to 3 crafted modifiers benchcraft, is a suffix. And you need the trigger craft on your wand as well, which is also a suffix. This means you need 2 open suffix slots, hence the regal orb should hit a prefix to make that happen. If it doesn't, like in my case, you will have to use an orb of annulment to remove a modifier. 2 out of the 3 times that is a modifier that you can miss, any suffix will be removed after all. 1 out of the 3 times you will remove the +1 minion prefix and you will just have to start over and use an orb of scouring. Fortunately for me, I hit the suffix. It is a shame I hit the minion one though, but okay, better than starting over. This is the time to multimod, meaning you first select the can have up to 3 crafted modifiers and you craft that. Then you craft minion damage, which is a prefix, and then you can craft the trigger, which is a suffix, giving you at the very least a guaranteed wand with +1 minion, around 75% minion damage, including the implicit, and the trigger. You may get lucky and kept the minion crit multiplier instead of the intelligence, and you may get lucky with your final slam exalted orb for an even better result. I don't, however. I hit spell damage and mana, which isn't great, but this wand will be on average a little bit better than the one from method 1, although you need a little bit more setup. The third method is using fossil crafting, which is an entirely different way of crafting and requires much more knowledge and prerequisites. Starting with the prerequisites, what you basically have to do is start using Delve. Just start doing Delve. Go towards the Azerite nodes, gather all of the Azerite so that you can upgrade your character in the mines, get darkness resistance and get light radius, and slowly but surely make your way to around 200 depth. I'm assuming at this point you are running tier 16 maps, by the way. There are plenty of guides covering the basics of Delve, although I might make one tailored to SSF, but Delve is a lot easier than you may think. I am assuming you have some basic knowledge about Delve, meaning that I'm assuming you understand how to get sulfite as fuel for the cart, meaning just do Nico in maps, how to get your resistances up and how to move the cart around and travel to the different Delve nodes. If that is your level of knowledge, which is very basic, that is enough for what I'm about to tell you. Rather than focusing too much on specific outcomes when delving, thereby complicating delve significantly, I would just simply travel down to around 200 depth once more. That is a great place to be, it's a great place to farm, and once you have your darkness resistance capped and your light radius capped and you figured out how to blow up walls with dynamite, you can start exploring all these side areas while the cart is traveling to a new delve node and start looting whatever is in there. And whatever is in there should be fossils and resonators. If you do this for a while, let's say a few hours, you will end up with a decent supply of resonators and fossils. You don't have to know really what to do with them for now, just make sure you get a bunch, make your way to depth 200 and then resume this video. And subscribe and like, by the way. Alright, now that you reached 200 depth, your stash with delve should have a good number of fossils and resonators. If you went into all of the side areas, you should have a decent collection, otherwise just keep delving. The moment you reached this stage, it is time to figure out how this craft actually works, and it is really not that easy. I will explain the very basics of fossil crafting in 2 sentences though. The whole idea of fossils is that some fossils provide you an increased chance to roll certain modifier types, such as modifiers with the fire tag, while others block entire modifier types, such as chaos. By combining multiple fossils, you can sort of control which mods are more likely to appear on items and which mods are blocked entirely. The best way I found, rather than trying any of this out in-game, is to use a website called Craft of Exile, which lets you select your base item, in my case a one-handed weapon, and select Convoking Wand, and then it presents all the possible affixes. Or, much easier, you import the item that you have in-game, meaning that you do Ctrl-Alt-C in-game when you hover over your item, you click the import button on the website and you import the item. From the entire list of affixes, you only select +1 to all minion skills, as that is the one that you care about for now, and then at the top of the page there are a gazillion crafting options. As you just delved, we are interested in only fossils, so select that. And then make sure in the resonator number select 3, meaning it will only calculate combinations for resonators that can hold up to 3 fossils. You should have a good number of those if you have been delving for a few hours. If not, just keep delving around 200 depth and explore those side areas. If you now hit calculate, it runs a calculation and starts listing all the possible fossil combinations that are most likely to result in a +1 minion wand based on cost efficiency, which you don't care about in SSF, and based on raw efficiency, which you kind of care about. More so, you care about these Craft of Exile combinations that you actually have the fossils for. That is the most important, clearly. You can only use the fossils you have, after all. Now, if there is a fossil that just keeps coming back over and over again in these combinations, such as the bound fossil, and you see it in almost every craft, it is a good idea to go to the wiki and see in which areas of delve these things drop. Because all of these fossils have certain areas in delve where they drop. This is not just random, which you might think initially. In general, fossils related to minions, for example, drop from minion nodes. No surprise there, I guess. Fossils related to cold, with names such as shuddering or frigid, drop in the cold biomes of delve, which are blue on the map. You can hover over them and then it also tells you. The same is true for fire, meaning for example scorching fossils, and lightning, meaning metallic fossils. You can find those at their specific nodes, which sometimes appear, and the lower you go in delve, the deeper you go in delve, the more of these special nodes that you get. These nodes are a great place to farm them, but in general they are in their respective biomes. Any side area in a biome of this type can contain those fossils. So you can target farm them, but I think it is good to do that once you understand why you need them and which ones that you would want. Then everything makes a lot more sense and you have a clear goal in mind and a clear reason as to why you're farming rather than just going out and farming. Okay, back to the overview. Let's assume you have at least enough fossils to try out a few of the combinations that the website suggests. I'm very much of the opinion you should just use what you have and efficiency is whatever. You can always farm more. I see, for example, in my case, corroded, metallic, shuddering, and that is a combination that hits on average a +1 minion skill once in 6 tries. I take a 3-socket resonator, slot in those fossils, right click the resonator and then left click the wand and I miss. This will happen, of course. I'm already out of corroded fossils, but I have a lot of bound fossils, so I try the bound 1 fossil resonator, which is basically just spamming bound fossils, and decides to take bound and opulent. So that's a 2 fossil resonator. You can tell it rolls a bunch of minion modifiers, but it doesn't yet roll my +1 minion. This also means, although this is mostly my interpretation, that once it does roll the +1 to minion skills, it tends to get a bunch of other minion modifiers as well. You may also notice that rather than going for the optimal strategy and farm specifically for those fossils, I just use whatever I have. I find that an appealing strategy in SSF personally. I would rather get an upgrade and then use that to farm more later than straight away gamble for perfect results. I load up a few more 2 fossil resonators with bound and aberrant fossils, another combination from the website, and start hitting that wand. And then on the 9th resonator I hit a +1 to fire skills, which is usable, but it's not what I'm looking for. There are a few more 3 fossil resonator recipes I can use, using bound, scorched and frigid fossils. I fill up 4 of those because that is how much I can do. The first one misses, the second one does as well, and then the third one hits. Look at this thing, it's got so many minion affixes and a +1 minion skill. There is, however, one issue, and that is there are no open suffixes available, meaning I can't craft my trigger wand. You have 2 options here in my opinion. You can either gamble and use an Orb of Annulment hoping to hit a suffix. That is a far from great option, as you could hit your +1 minion affix as well and then you have to start all over. Assuming you have at least 1 open prefix, which I do have, there is also a recipe in the menagerie using beast crafting, which lets you remove a suffix and add a prefix. I am fine removing any suffix and add any prefix as long as I can craft my trigger. This recipe does require a specific beast, but this guy is fairly common, and if you don't have him you could just farm some Einharm maps and try to get him. I personally think that is worth doing in this instance, as it guarantees a very decent wand for you, so if you're patient enough you can do this. After completing the beastcraft, it turned out that it takes the crit chance suffix, which is not bad, meaning that I keep the minion attack and cast speed, which is a great roll. I now have an open suffix, so I craft the trigger and then you just finish the wand with the collars and sockets that you need. When changing gear that involves +1 to minion levels, I always go to town, which is a place where my specters can't die unless I remove their skill gems from my gear. This wand is an upgrade for me. I'm quite happy with this wand. The only upgrade after this would be a better +1 minion wand, which would require using fracturing orbs and getting very lucky, or it would require even more fossil crafting and getting very lucky. Or I could go for even a +2 wand, which is way more advanced. I would start with this, see if you can follow what I did in this video and replicate it. Hopefully I explained these steps decently well. Good luck crafting, and thanks for watching and making it to the end. Next time I will cover how to make a +2 minion helmet from scratch in SSF. Love you all, see you soon, bye bye.